Hey, Greg, welcome to the show. So we're getting started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, Brian. Big fan of the show. I listen to your podcast, both the Brutal Truth as well as the B2B Revenue podcast, quite a bit. So I appreciate you having me. I'm Greg Anderson. 13 years in sales. I think a bit of a rarity at the exact same company. So
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
First company I started with out of college, a company called Tech Target. I started in Boston. So I'm on 13 years, 4 offices in 3 continents. Started out as, essentially what you would think of as an inside sales rep, calling into local VARs and resellers to sell our marketing services and solutions. So as a business, essentially what we do is we work with enterprise IT organizations and help to connect them with buyers through, we're a publishing company and have since evolved into a MarTech company with intent data. So started out working with a lot of those small VARs and resellers, some 2 to 3 man shops, some larger ones. Eventually showed that I think I had the chops to work with some larger organizations and was asked to move out to San Francisco, my early 20s, to take on some of our global accounts, companies like Cisco and Intel and Dell and HP, so to work with those really large organizations and complex sales. And then next step, I was eventually asked to move out to our Singapore office to build up our sales team across Asia Pacific. So I did that in 2014, and now I am calling you from Sydney, where I now reside. So I've moved down here to our Australia office, and I look after our sales team across all of Asia Pacific, with offices in Australia, Singapore, as well as India.
Wow. I guess you must like to travel.
I think you have to.
Don't have a choice.
You just kind of get used to it. Yeah, just in the last 2 weeks, I was up in Singapore for a week and then over in our Bangalore office for a week. So yeah, travel quite a bit. When I was in the US as a rep, it was every single week I was on a plane to a different city, spending time with a lot of the same customers. But you do have to learn to love to travel, learn to be able to work on the road. You're in different hotel rooms in different cities, sometimes waking up not knowing where you are, but you always know that you've got your laptop and an internet connection so you can get things done.
Yeah, that's it. I always remember, because I traveled a lot too, that first moment when you wake up and you look at the phone to see what city you're in.
Yeah. What time zone it's in. It's
right. And then you start your day from there. Yeah.
One of the greatest things that ever happened was the smartphone automatically changing time zones, so it was always right for you.
Yeah.
You didn't have to look at the clock in the hotel room anymore to figure out what you needed to set your watch to.
Yeah. And I remember one day or several times waking up on the plane, not knowing where I was going. It's just that just for a minute where you're like, okay, I'm on a plane. I don't know where.
Yep, you wake up, you hear that little ding.
Yep.
I think the biggest week of travel that I ever had. So I was in our San Francisco office, and I had a number of meetings. So this is when I had, I was working with HP and Cisco and a lot of those larger organizations, but also with their ad agencies. So we supported all their sales and marketing campaigns. So there was agencies in Chicago, in New York, and then there was also sales floors in places like Arkansas. So I had a trip where it was from San Francisco to Boston, Boston to New York, New York to Arkansas, Arkansas to Dallas, Dallas to Houston, Houston to Boulder, Boulder to San Francisco. And that was one day in each city, 7-day whirlwinds around the US. And by the end of it, you definitely don't know where you are, what time zone it is, and you're just happy to get home. But, it's fun to be able to do that for a while.
Now, you have an interesting career trajectory, same company, but, going up every time. Is that what's kept you there, or did you just find a perfect match for your personality and your style?
I think it's a little bit of both. I really enjoy the work that we do. From our leadership team who's been around, if you actually take a look at some of the folks who are at the top of our organization, most people have been here 10 to 15 plus years. It's a great culture. It's a great business, but it's always evolving. So, we started out, as I mentioned, as a publishing company where we create content for IT buyers to make smarter decisions. So, I saw that you were at Data Power that was looked like acquired by IBM. Yep. And so people that were looking at API software, for example, would come to our sites and evaluate different vendors and better understands, how they can make secure integrations and whatnot. And that's how we started, just writing content for those folks. And then it continuously evolved to smarter marketing services, to now intent data services, where we've moved from strictly talking to marketing folks to now we're talking to sales leaders and inside sales organizations. So the company itself has changed, I think, in changing roles and changing cities. It always feels like a new job. It always feels like a new challenge. So for anybody listening and considering relocating, I couldn't, I couldn't encourage you to do that more. I think it's really refreshing to do that. And I'd say the last bit in being in kind of marketing services and software, where we don't go in and sell a product and then move on to a new customer. We sell a product to a customer and we stick with them for years. I just referenced IBM, where you were, they've been a big customer for a long time, and we have teams dedicated to going in and talking to the marketing teams and the sales teams on, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So we get to learn the ins and outs of a lot of the, the largest, the most profitable, interesting organizations, from companies like IBM to some of the small startups. So, day in and day out, we're spending time with some of the smartest, most innovative tech companies, both on the sales and the marketing front. So you just get really interesting exposure to other organizations. So, it's a real combination of just, our culture, the shift in our products, but also just the exposure to the always changing landscape of tech. It's been really interesting.
And so now you manage a team, or you're building a team, or both?
Both. So I'm managing a team, and we're continuing to build a team. So we have a team here in Sydney, a team in Singapore, and a team in India as well. So a couple of different layers from we've got our inside sales team, we've got our field account exec that's out there hunting, we've got our enterprise account managers that are managing smaller territories of 20 accounts. So it's been a very interesting shift going from sales rep to leading a team, and not only leading a team in the US, but leading a team across 3 different countries and multiple geographies and multiple cultures as well, which has been eye-opening, and it's been a real I think a really valuable journey to be able to come out here and to better understand how things work, admittedly outside of the US, where I know that a lot of folks in North America have a very North America centric perspective.
Well, everybody's got a very centric, I've worked for people, from all over the country, and they tend to assume that the whole world is the way it is in their home base.
Yep. Yeah. So, one of the first meetings that I had here, I recall I came down and I met with, it was Dell's whole marketing organization across Australia. And I was young when I was moved out here. I was 28, and I was real confident now that I've built this business in North America in terms of running all these global marketing teams and selling to all these companies. So I can teach these guys a lot of things. And I went into the meeting, and I think my opening was, well, I've worked with your team in North America, and I've got a lot of learnings to bring there. And one guy was like, well, I just got to remind you that this isn't North America. We're not in North America. So I don't know that it's going to necessarily matter to us. And it was, he was right. He was very right. It's different markets, different sizes, different cultures. So I've definitely taken a step back from saying, hey, I can teach you something because I come from the US, and changing it around. So, teach me what you need, and I'll figure out a way to make it happen.
And that must be hard managing those people, because certainly in sales, it's really hard to tell, what's real versus what, people are trying to describe it as.
Yeah.
And plus, and how do you keep from trying to have them work your way versus the way they know will work within their territory and their country?
That was the biggest challenge. And I'm sure if you talk to anybody who's come from being, a really successful individual contributor to having to manage and to lead a team eventually, is to really understand that everybody is not you. I think that's obviously evident if you do that in a place that is the same culture. But then when you move to a very multicultural, different countries, it's even more evident on that. So, I listened to a lot of podcasts and had to read a lot of books about coaching and leadership. And, I equate a lot of things to sports and athletes and things. And one of the things I always take away is, Michael Jordan was an amazing basketball player, but would be a terrible coach.
Yeah.
Because he has such a high expectation of everybody that they need to be him. So
Right.
realizing
That's not going to work.
it's not going to work. And not to equate myself to Michael Jordan in any sense, but that's, I think, a good example in a way that you need to shift your mindset to, okay, who is the team that I have? What are the unique skill set that all these individuals have? How do they like to work? And how can I make sure that I help them get the most out of themselves? That was a big transition for me, to really understand, how the team worked, what areas they were really good at, what they weren't good at,
Yeah.
areas that maybe I thought they should focus on that they didn't focus on, kind of digging into the why on that and realizing that, I'm not always correct in the way that you should approach things. The way that we do business in North America isn't always the way that we do business here. So learning a lot from the team really helped me, I think, become a better leader for them,
Yeah.
rather than just coming in and saying, hey, it's my way or the highway, get on board, log your stuff in Salesforce, this many activities.
Right.
This is what you say to close. And if you don't do that, there's the door. That's just not the way to build a team.
That's it, because no matter where we go in sales, we have to be chameleons. We have to
Exactly.
adapt to the environment.
Yep.
I can't tell you the number of times I've brought a manager into like a large government account, and they'd be like, well, who's the CEO? I go, there's no CEO.
Yeah.
Right? And he talks about profit and loss. I go, there's no profit.
There's no profit and loss. This is a government organization. Right. They just sent a tender. They don't care.
Yeah, they're trying to find terrorists. This is what they do.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So making sure that you're a chameleon and you spend more time listening, and I think empathizing. I'd say in the last few years, I think that has really come out as a skill that's highlighted is, empathy, both for customers, but also for your peers and employees and
Yeah.
things like that. But I think that's something that I've always had that has really helped me from a career perspective, is both empathy internally and externally, not only for the teams that are supporting you on the operations side, on the product management side, but also for customers, knowing that, their day, believe it or not, when you leave their office continues. They're not just thinking about you and your team and what you just talked about. They have a number of different things that they need to achieve. And that translates right into leading a sales team, is understanding just the individual, but also, I don't know that it's talked about enough, but really understanding the personal lives of the people that are on your team. Because everybody, just like when you think a customer after you leave their office, there's a lot of things going on. Your entire team has a lot of things going on outside of the office. When they leave, there's different things that are involved with, relationships and children and, families and illness and, other goals that are sometimes outside of growing in sales, which, might sound shocking.
Quarter. Yeah.
So just really understanding that and knowing where and when to apply pressure, but then in other times to, empathize and make sure that you give some leeway.
Right. And how to motivate them when they're
exactly
right, when they're down, or keep them focused on what really matters, something that's bigger than just this deal.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can really show, really show that you care, I think it goes back to that old book, How to Meet Friends and Influence People. It's just to be genuinely interested in the other person. That's probably the biggest takeaway I remember from that book. And again, something I think really helped me early in sales was be genuinely interested in that other person, but also their business, also their family life. And it helps to build that curiosity when you think of things like that. And it's very transparent when somebody's asking you questions of, hey, how was your weekends?
Yeah,
compared to
they flip immediately to what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Versus, how was the weekend? I knew that your family was visiting in town. Did you go anywhere interesting or special? Asking questions that show that you care rather than just that surface level thing. You're going to get a lot more out of both customers and employees that way.
And what motivates you?
Well, I guess it's kind of changed. Different things over time from a work perspective. Obviously, you want to hit your numbers, you want to lead your team. I think what's motivated me always, I'd say, coming from being an athlete, is the overall team winning.
Yeah.
So I've always personally wanted to perform really well. You know, you want to hit your numbers, you want to do everything, but I think it's that piece in the athlete that wants the team to win, but also wants to be recognized for how well they've done. Because, you know, if you have the best game of your life, for example, but your team loses, you know, it's for what? So
Doesn't
for
feel the
any
same.
doesn't feel the same. So it's always been motivated on obviously me being the best that I can be, but also making sure that everybody around me is the best that they can be, so that together the team can win. And that's how I've always looked at Tech Target as a business. As you know, I am not an individual contributor. You know, I am part of this team. I'm equal to everybody else, and everybody else is equal to me, because we're all marching towards the same goal, to be
Yeah.
successful. So that's always been it. It hasn't necessarily been, you know, the money or the title or the drive. It's, you know, it's just performing really well and making sure that everybody around us performs well.
Now, you're selling into a difficult group, the marketing and sales departments.
Yes.
They've got a lot of options.
There's a lot of options. There's a lot of options. There's almost too many options.
Too many options. Yeah.
So I think maybe you'd be familiar with that MarTech Lunarscape just continues to grow from, you know, 3,000 to 5,000 to 7,000. And I talk to the team about this all the time, is there are so many organizations and individuals like us that walk in and say the exact same thing.
Yep.
And we put up a nice charts, you know, provide a nice dashboard, say we can make sure that we get you in front of the companies you should talk to and the people that you should talk to. So that kind of setting the stage. What we do to separate ourselves is to have really deep knowledge of the market.
Yeah.
So our team prides ourselves on very much being consultants in the space, not just selling a lead, not just selling a platform, but selling ourselves, in that, hey, once you have access to this, we are your team. We run thousands of marketing campaigns for teams all over the world. I work with hundreds of individual sales teams, and we see what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to be there on a weekly basis to help make recommendations as to how your messaging maybe should change to engage people in Australia versus Thailand and Singapore and Bangalore, because we have the data to back that up. Coming in and sitting on the sales floor with your team to see here how they're approaching the leads and follow-up, and actually providing some guides and some scripts, and sitting down with them to say, hey, this is how I would approach this, and this is how we've seen it work. So that has really helped us, I think, separate from the competition. But to your point, it's always going to be a challenging group, because, you know, the first thing any organization can do when they're maybe having a tough time is shift the marketing budget. That's what we saw a lot. That's what we see a lot. And we're also selling a solution that's dependent on the success of our customers. So we're selling a solution that says, hey, you use these tools, you will close more business. And there's a variety of approaches and skill sets on the other end of our customers that we simply can't control. So the more that we can do a good job of kind of shepherding, you know, their skill set to be able to deliver value on what we offer, is really, really important. But, you know, there's a certain stage where, you know, we do lose control of that. So it's a constant challenge.
In both sales and marketing, you know, I'd say probably even more in marketing, people are used to what used to work, and it changes so fast that, you know, the ball has moved and they're still running in the wrong direction. So you got to kind of like wave them, but everyone's waving at them. It's over here. It's over here.
Everybody's waving at them. And I think, you know, one of my personal beliefs is, because our predominant customer is the marketer.
Yeah.
So whether it's global marketing from a brand perspective, I think here in Asia Pacific, for the most part, we work with what I would call field marketers. And those marketers are directly aligned with the sales teams. So they have the sales teams knocking on their door saying, get us better leads, get us better leads.
This is not a
And
lead,
they,
it's a contact.
yeah, exactly. And they also have sales leadership, not sales leadership doing the same thing, but their leadership setting new KPIs of, I'm going to give you X budget this quarter,
Yeah.
and I need you to deliver 10X on that this quarter, which, that's a reasonable expectation for ROI, but not when you have a 9-month sales cycle. So
That's the other problem in your space, because they want the payback attached to the investment, or
yeah,
right. But the windows might be beyond a year sometimes.
I was with the customer the other day, and she acknowledges that, and we kind of joked about it. And she said, I was able to track a closed one for something that we delivered in 2016,
Yeah.
and I think that's a big challenge. Is a lot of the KPIs of what's coming down to marketers, as well as the ability to quote unquote measure everything. I wouldn't say measure; I'd say track. You can track
Yeah.
everything. That leads marketers to having to make, frankly, the wrong decisions.
Especially
Where
in B2B.
very much in B2B
Right.
is
Because you got so many influencers that may not even work at that company. They might be
exactly.
contractors or, influencers of some kind. And they're
Yep.
trying to track, that lead through a big enterprise deal. And it's like,
You can't do that. There's
can't
so
do
many
that.
touch points. I mean, you sold to government organizations. You know how many different stakeholders there are and how many different
Right.
stages of the buy
Yeah.
cycle there is and how often that changes. So to put marketing in a position to say, if I give you $1, you need to return me 10, and you need to be able to
Right.
track it from, this one webcast that you did, or this
Right.
one white paper download that happened to you.
Yeah.
It's basically it's unreasonable to be able to do that. So I think attribution models need to change. I think some KPIs for marketing needs to change, because what that leads people to do, I think, is to make decisions that they can manipulate the measurement on, versus make decisions that they know logically are going to help improve the business, help improve their brands, help
Right.
improve their long-term conversion rates for sales. So it's a fun space to be in. It's a challenging space to be in. It's ever evolving, both on our customer side, as well as our product set, just because technology continues to advance. So, every quarter, it seems like it's a new year.
And how do you keep the deals moving? Because I know with that crowd or that target persona, it's a lot of excitement, and then you leave, and that
Yep,
excitement,
that
dips pretty
excitement
quick.
drops.
And then the next
Either
guy comes in and says, "Well, no,
Yep,
this is what you should do."
somebody else comes in and shows a flashier dashboard. They get a call from the sales leader and says, "We need 1,000 more leads immediately." An event pops up. So you're right, there's a lot of distractions there. So the big thing that we do to try to help the deal moving is to help our customers buy.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important in sales, is always explaining, here are the next steps.
Right.
When I leave this meeting, we're going to follow up with this info, and by Monday we expect a response, and here's what we're going to commit to doing.
Yeah.
And explaining to them, making it really, really easy to buy, but also constantly showing them the value of what they're missing
Why?
out on.
Yeah.
The why, and what they're missing out on, and being able to show that, hey, this, in your example, this government organization is showing a lot of activity in the API space right now. I can see 15 individual buyers on the buying team that are doing research. This is happening today, and we need to get your sales in front of them tomorrow to make sure that you're at the front of the line. So continuing to build the value, but then making it very easy to buy, which, admittedly, we don't always succeed on making it easy to buy. But that's the goal.
Yeah. I mean, because they need to sell people internally. They probably have some allocated budget already, but their career is very short-term focused.
Yep.
The CEO isn't say, "Well, give me a 5-year plan." No, it's give me this year plan.
Give me this quarter's plan, but really that's an 8-week plan, and then back into planning
Right.
cycles.
And otherwise you're just chasing instead of like building. Now, I'm sure you have the ability to entice them with sample data and stuff to show them what you can do.
We do. That's been a big evolution in our values, because our platform is, you can see everybody doing research on our sites and the opt-in data of who they are, and it's very unique to our business. So it goes to one of a great tip in terms of outreach that we teach our team is don't ever send an email that could come from any one of our competitors,
Right.
meaning show something that only we can show.
Yeah.
And it's always that sample data of people showing activity on our site. So that really helps. But to your previous point about multiple stakeholders being involved in budget cycles and things, that's another really important thing that we need to understand to help our customers buy. So we always, like I said, work for the most part with the same customers quarter over quarter, always trying to bring new ones on, but looking to renew every single quarter. So it's important for us to know, what calendar year fiscal are they on? How do their POs get opened? What is kind of the chain of command that goes through there? What systems do they use? So we make sure that we keep all this data, and there's always new marketers coming on. And sometimes, frankly, we're helping them understand their internal systems of,
Right.
well, actually, I need to give you an invoice ahead of time so that you can open a PO. Your typical turnaround time is 7 days. And this is, this person that sits in this office is usually the one that gets involved. So here are the 3 things we can do today to make sure that you get this set up next week when you want it. That, again, is an invaluable partnership, piece of the partnership that we can offer. But it comes from a lot of asking the right questions and maintaining that data in CRM, which is not always the easiest thing.
Yeah.
But I think we do a pretty good job of it.
And what do you see as a key differentiator between the A players in your company that you've seen, that you've experienced, and the B players?
I think so when I look to hire and I think back to and look at some of the best employees at our company, I'd say it's kind of the 3 C's that I like to look at. So the first one is curiosity. Yeah. I think that is such an undervalued skill. And I don't even know if some people would call that a skill, but it is.
It's definitely a skill.
It's definitely a skill. Wanting to know everything about not only the customer, but how everything internally works. So just a relentless curiosity of how everything works, because that's going to allow you to make things a little bit better. Curiosity, confidence is a really, really important thing. So both confidence in what you know, but confidence in what you don't know. I think it's really, really important for reps to be able to go in and say, I don't understand this, but I'm confident that I can learn.
I can figure it out. Yeah.
And it's the same thing when talking to customers. We have a new inside sales guy, and I was talking to him the other day, and he's 5 days in, and we've already got him on the phone trying to set meetings up. And he's like, sometimes they throw these words at me that I don't know, and sometimes they're asking me these questions that I can't answer. And I say, that's fine. Just confident reply and say, hey, I'm on day 7. And this is my first job out of school. And, here's what my role is. And I'd love for you to tell me what I could do better and tell me what you mean by that question. Yeah. The confidence to be able to ask that, the curiosity behind it is going to lead to, him becoming a lot better, but also just humanizes him to the customer, and they're going to be willing to help. So curiosity and confidence are really important. And then the last bit, and I think that this is genuinely probably the biggest skill and can continue to be improved, is being able to connect the dots. And that is what we just talked about from a customer's buying journey, what their process is internally, what our process is internally, who the key stakeholders are over there, what is going to happen to our product and solutions after we sell it to them. Yeah. And to be able to have this full roadmap in your head to connect all the dots of what's happening, what's going to happen, and that will help to inform your decision on either how to position the value of it, on maybe where you want to offer different incentives for things, and certainly who you need to go after to make sure that you build consensus with outside of the key stakeholder. So it's never a linear buyer's journey. You really have to connect the dots, and that's going to allow you to build up the value. So the best sales reps that I've seen, and I like to think that I exude a lot of these as well, from a confidence perspective. Curiosity and connecting the dots is really important.
Cool. Hey, it's been a great conversation. Where can people go to follow you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. So just Greg Anderson on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter, but admittedly not active enough on Twitter. So if people want to come and follow me at Mr. Greg Anderson, that might encourage me to probably post a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love to take connections. I love to hear from people. I love to get recommendations on different podcasts like yours, and and everything else. And I'll say thank you for putting out all this great content. I share it with my team often. I listen to it often on the way to work as a way to motivate me and to level set for the day. So I just appreciate everything that you do, and I appreciate you having me.